Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Currently, this week, we're not joined by my co host, Sean. He's currently busy, so he should be back next week. This episode may come out a little late, but we'll go with it. Real quick, before we get into the episode, I just wanted to go over this podcast is mostly meant to be funny. There are going to be serious episodes where you should be able to differentiate between the two, whether it's going to be funny, it's going to be serious. Last week was meant to be funny. Since last week we rolled on a more of a comical, spiritual, otherworldly type of episode, I figured we'd keep it going this week, and I would give a personal recount of a time that I believe I was haunted. Um, and I don't, whether you believe in being haunted, hauntings are real, hauntings not real, whatever. This is more along the lines of something serious. This is, you know, me expressing something that I remember very, very vividly. If you agree with it, you agree with it. If you don't, you don't. I mean, that's how it is. And I'm open to conversation about it. Either way. Uh, but the most I can do is just give you a recount of what happened to me, what I remember, and how it made me feel. So this takes place before I ever met Sean. This is back. I was the story will range from me being about 5 to 6 all the way till I was about 7 or 8. I used to have night terrors, and for anybody that's experienced night terrors, I don't have to explain to you how they work or what they how bad they can be. Anyone who hasn't experienced a night terror, a nightmare is something that, might worry you or cause you a little discomfort, make you scared a little bit. A night terror is something that is, at least to me, it is something that's more of a, I feel like I'm dying, or this is so scary to me that it's affecting my life outside of sleep, that it's into into the real world, and it's causing me extreme discomfort. It's extremely upsetting. So forewarned, if you don't like this kind of talk about hauntings or like demons or anything like that, whether you believe it or not, if you don't like any of that stuff, this is your warning now. Just go ahead and skip this one. If it's interest to you at all, if it's something that you just want to get some insight on, I'll give you my insight on mine. So the time frame starts when I was about 5. I used to have night terrors every night. Every single night that I went to sleep, I had a night terror. I would wake up in cold sweats. I would generally like scream myself awake, or get frightened so bad in my dream, like from dying or something, that I would wake up in like beaded sweat. Uh, I was genuinely afraid. Most kids are afraid of the dark. I was afraid to the point of like I would do anything I could to not go to bed, simply because I just didn't want to have another night terror. And it got to the point to where it was, like I said, every single night, and it was for years. I want to say they lasted until I was about 8 years old. And I'm not. There was no like, oh, it's good now, and it's then the next night's bad, and then the next night's good. It wasn't anything like that. It was a genuine. Every single day I went to sleep for about 3 years, I experienced these extreme nightmares. So to get into it, I would have a dream. Now there's several different ones. There's one in particular that I'm going to talk about in this one. But each dream that I would have, I dreamed so much of it, and then I would wake up from it, and then the next night I would dream either at the beginning to a little bit past where I was, or I would dream almost like a stop and play of a movie. Like I would dream a section, and then the next night I would dream the next section, and the next night, and so on and so forth. And this happened for a long time. Um, but I had this one in particular one. This one in particular one was, I used to sleep with the covers over my head. And in my dream, I was in my room, that where my bed was or whatever, like, real life. I would dream that I could vividly see the room, vividly see me sleeping with covers over my head. Or some nights I would dream that I was sleeping, and I would wake up and the covers would be over my head, right? I thought I was awake, but I was actually dreaming. I would dream that. I would dream that I was sleeping with the covers over my head, Either version would happen sometimes here and there. But then it got to the point to where I would have the version of like the covers over my head. And I always thought I was like awake or maybe waking up during that time. I don't know if that was the case or not. But what I do know is that I could hear something in the background, like cats fighting, two alleys away kind of thing, like a distance away to where you can't really you can kind of hear something, but you can't really tell what it is. And it would start with the covers over my head, and it was start with that. Then the next night, and this happened over a period of months, and it was very, very slow. I mean, I'll kind of explain this quickly, but it was very slow. The next night, there is a cricket. There's a cricket somewhere. Oh my gosh. Hopefully, it doesn't pick up on the mic. I apologize if it does. We have crickets because my daughter has a lizard, and so we feed it crickets. Anyway, the following night, well, the following time that I recount that would lead, like, if I go into a sequence of night versus night versus night, the following night, um, it would get louder, and I would just be there, and like the whole dream was just me under the covers. I would be there under the covers, and I would hear something. The following dream sequence. That's what we'll do. We'll call these dream sequences. Following dream sequence was it got slightly louder, and so on and so forth. Then eventually it got to the point to where I could feel something, like I could hear it a little better, and it sounded like a slight roar. And I could feel it like at the end of my bed, like something either lurking below my bed or maybe even like standing above me looking down at me. Not sure if it was tall, if it was short. I couldn't tell you when initially. I did feel that like there was this presence at the end of my bed. So I would wake up and I would be sweating bullets. And when I would wake up, I'd wake up with the covers over my head. And I was like, okay, I was dreaming. Well, it got to the point so that it continued. And as it continued to get louder and I could finally feel it, it also felt like it was getting closer. Like maybe at the first time I felt it was a couple feet away from the bed. And then closer, and then closer, and then closer. And then every time it got closer, it also got louder. And it wasn't like loud to begin with, but it was getting louder. And it was definitely a roar at this point. It was like maybe a far distance roar. And then it got to the point to where the roar got closer along with the presence. So then the next part of the sequence, same kind of thing. But this time I felt something touch near my feet of the bed, like the covers, like it was barely trying to pull on the covers. I would wake up, covers still be over my head. Obviously, it's a dream. Nothing really is happening. Okay, let's go to the next one. The next one, the same thing. Presence got closer. It finally, like about the time, probably the second or third time in of it touching the covers, it stopped like moving closer, and it got its hands, claws, whatever, closer to my feet. But it only happened a couple of times, and it was never on my feet. But it got to the point to where it was pulling the covers down ever so slowly, and I would wake up. The covers would be over my head. Eventually, it got to the point to where I went to bed one night. The roar got loud, and the covers came down a little slower. And maybe they were about eye level ish, maybe nose, like right at my nose or whatever. I woke up that time, and the covers were where they were in my dream. They were slowly down on my face. So, I pawned that off as when I was a kid, I pawned all this off as like, this is normal. I'm just having nightmares or whatever. I didn't realize, it wasn't until I became an adult that I realized that this was like very challenging stuff. Um, but I thought all this was normal, more or less. And then the covers over my, right around my face, my nose, whatever it was like, yeah, that's typical. I'm kicking my covers off with my feet or whatever. I'm moving around a whole bunch. The following sequence was the same thing, and it got louder. The covers came down more. I could genuinely this at this point feel that something was pulling them, like pulling them. It was doing it very slow, but definitely wasn't me. And I woke up that night with the covers about my neck area. The following time, it got closer to my chest. Again, getting louder. It got to the point to where every time was louder, every time covers came down more. I could By then I definitely felt like something was hovering over me. Like not hovering, but like it was at the foot of my bed, which was a small bed. It was clawed into my blanket, my covers or whatever, my comforter or whatever you want to call it. And its claws were pulling the covers down. While it was doing that, it was leaning itself over me, and it got to the point to where I could feel it breathing. And I could feel it breathing like on my face through the covers. And then it got to the point where it stopped, like it clawed the covers in, or it put its claws in. By this time I could tell it was claws. It put its claws in the bed on the covers, but it wasn't pulling them down. But I could feel it breathing heavily. The roar got louder. This happened every single time, like a loud roar, heavy breathing. Same thing with the covers. And same thing with the roar. It progressed. And breathing got heavier, and at some point, I could eventually feel that it was like hot breath on my face through a thin sheet. Right. Then it got to the point to where it was doing that. It stopped roaring, but it was pulling the covers down. Every time it did, I would wake up with the covers in the same spot that was in my dream. It definitely felt like something was in the room with me then when I woke up. Before, it hadn't felt like something was in the room. It just like I woke up and I was like, oh, it's just a nightmare. Now it feels like something's in the room. And like I said, this happened over a period of months. I'm just trying to whittle this down. And I know it's like the same thing over and over, but that's what it was. It was repeated. Eventually, it's getting the covers, down past my chest, down past my like stomach. And it's stopped roaring by this time. It didn't roar anymore. I could feel it breathing. And then when I would wake up, it would feel like somebody was like right here and they were staring at me, just like staring, if you hear that expression, staring into your soul kind of thing. Like it was something like that. Like they were looking me dead in the eyes and just staring and just like trying to perceive my soul kind of thing. It got to the point to where it kept doing that, and it kept breathing on me. It kept pulling the covers down. The last time I remember it pulling the covers down, covers were at my stomach. So the next night I went to bed, didn't dream about it. This is kind of the thing that would happen to me. I would dream dreams for so long, and eventually they'd stop, and then I'd start dreaming about something else, and it would escalate. The night after that, though, I dreamed about it one last time. So the last time I dreamt about it, it was, the sheets. There's no longer a comforter over my face, kind of thing. There's just a thin sheet, and I could feel it, like in my like it was touching its nose to my nose, kind of thing, kind of thing, and it was breathing on me, and it was very hot, very heavy, but it stopped breathing. When it stopped breathing, the covers started slowly creeping. And then about the time they got to my chest, it got a little faster. And then it got to my stomach. All of a sudden, I heard a loud, deafening roar. And then the covers yanked off of me. And then I woke up, and I woke up screaming. I woke up feeling like something was, like, I felt like something was on my bed, laying on, like, arms stretched out over my face, like my head's here, its hands are here or whatever, and it's like on me, like, I'm gonna destroy you, or like I'm kind of like an animal does to another animal where they're, I'm dominant and I'm over you and I'm here. Pay attention that I'm here because this is, I'm your master kind of thing. And it was very, very, very creepy. I mean, I was sweating profusely. I was crying. I'd scream myself awake, and I could feel it there still. There's nothing in the room, nothing going on, but I could feel it. And my dad slept not too far away from me. And however, I mean, I remember screaming awake and everything, but either he slept through that, or I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, that part of it. I just know that I definitely felt like something was there, and he was completely oblivious to it. Um, but that was the first and only time that the covers came completely off of me, and that the roar was so loud that, like, my ears felt like they were bleeding, kind of thing. Not genuinely, but like that's bleeding eardrums is like as loud as I can describe it being. Thing that makes this story so creepy to me now as an adult, I mean, other than the fact, like, if I could make somebody, I don't want anybody to live through this, but if I could transport somebody to this memory where they could live through it themselves. I mean, genuinely, I believe I was haunted. I believe I was haunted, and in my version of what I believe I was haunted by, I believe I was haunted by maybe like a demon. If you think about it, like in the Christian faith kind of thing, I believe it was like a demon. And again, this is while I was very young, so you know, I hadn't done anything dumb yet. I hadn't done anything dumb like the last episode we talked about. Um, I was still, a child, and I was still, and at that time, I grew up in a Christian family, but my family we didn't go to church a whole lot, and at that time, I didn't really know. All I knew is there was, supposedly I was told there was God, there was, angels were real and demons were real. So what I believe it was a demon in my version of the haunting or whatever. And what makes the roar so scary to me as an adult is that if you've ever seen the movie Paranormal Activity, obviously we're all like, oh, okay, yeah, it's faked. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. Whatever. Choose to believe that however you will. What I do know, though, is I typically don't watch movies like that. And I finally, now this was many years after it came, I mean, many years after it came out. This was maybe 5, 6 years ago. Like, it's been out for a very, very long time. And I finally decided that I'd watch it. I typically don't like watching stuff like that because it does give me the creeps. I enjoyed the movie up until the point of where he goes downstairs, or she goes downstairs. I guess it's him. He goes downstairs to check to see what's going on, and he hears that roar and the chandelier swinging back and forth. In my memory, 100%, that sound that they put on that movie or whatever, I genuinely believe the same sound was the sound that I heard when I was like, you know, 5, 6, whatever, during this 5 to 8 time frame. That was the exact same roar sound that I heard in my dream. And they had caught it perfectly for that movie. Whatever they used to make that sound was the exact same sound I remember hearing when I was a kid. When I was watching that movie, as soon as I heard that sound, I was like, no, this is it. I can't watch this movie no more. This is hitting too close to home for me. I truly believe that this is the exact same sound I heard when I was a kid from my night terror, and I never want to experience that again. So I shut it off and I never finished it because it reminded me too much of the sound that I heard in my dream. If you choose to believe stuff like that, or you choose not to believe stuff like that, that's on you. I choose to believe that that was a genuine haunting, and like I said, I believe I was haunted by a demon or whatever, and I believe that it got to the point to where it was gonna make physical contact kind of thing. I don't know why it stopped. This story is one of like 4 or 5 that I have that happened over the period of the 3 years that make me believe that I was being haunted by something, because this dream stopped, but other ones picked up, and things happened to me in those where I believe whatever was haunting me just was continuing to mess with me. I mean, take that at face value, take it how you will. But that is my recount of how I believe I was haunted by a demon. It's just one of the stories that I have. And I'm sure at some point I will talk about the other ones. I just wanted to keep this kind of on the same vibe since the first episode was about, the whole Bible thing and Christianity kind of stuff. And it talked about other world stuff. I mean, yeah, it was lighthearted and it was meant to be funny, meant to be a funnier episode. And this one's meant to be more serious. So if you've made it this far, either listening or watching, thank you. We both should see you in the next one. And I hope that each and every one of you has a great day, afternoon, night, whenever you're choosing to watch this, listen to this. I hope that the rest of your day goes very well for yourself. So, thanks for listening. Podcast out.